Am I on? Am I live? Somebody tell me if I'm alive here. How do I sound? Good morning or good afternoon or whatever you want to call it. Okay, I sound good. Hey everybody, this is Mike Meyers on his, good Lord, what day of the week is it? The Wednesday edition of the Ask Mike Anything live stream. The goal of this live stream is to provide those of us who are isolated by the coronavirus an opportunity to continue our studies for our CompTIA certifications. So welcome aboard, and people are texting me all over the place. Got a pretty big day today, got a lot of stuff to cover, but before we do anything else, who was all over there? I gotta make a shout out to some buddies of mine. I don't want to say it wrong here. Oh, that's right, okay. First of all, I want to say hi to Joelle, Tracy, Troy, and Laura, who are all hanging out at the pergola and drinking wine. It's 68 degrees out here today in Texas. It's sunny skies. That's 20 degrees Celsius. 20? 20-ish, about 20 degrees Celsius for you, those of you. So they're out there having fun. I'll be with you soon. But anyway, welcome aboard, everybody. The goal of this live stream is to ask questions. So basically, here's how it works. Number one, you can ask me questions through the live chat right here. So you can just type in your questions and I'll answer them. We've got support from Dave Rush and Scott Jernigan, who are always here to help out, which is great. And if I miss a question, just type it again. It's not that big of a deal. It takes me a while to catch up to questions, but we will eventually get them all. However, if you're the shy type, don't worry about that. You can just send me an email. Here's my email information. I'm michaelm@totalsem.com, and just send me an email, and we can answer your question that way, and which is always fine. Glad to do that too, especially if you have a more detailed or complicated question. That is the better way to go. If you're a gamer, I am Senor Pepe on Steam, and if you want to know anything about me, just type in Desweds. That is my nom de plume, as it were. So you can see we got Jack with us today. I'm excited about that. He decided to clean himself in front of everybody. How's it going, buddy? He's happy and purring. Yeah. Whatever, Myers. But at least he did show up on time, so I was glad to see that. And what else? Today is configuring your home router, so we'll be doing that in a minute. I did get a few questions over the mail, but it looks like they've already been answered. So I'm not going to be in a big panic about that. Let me triple check one more time. It looks like they've all been answered, or there was some typo stuff. I don't want to get into that. Yep, so making sure we got them all here. Okay, I think we're... There we go. All right. Other than that, everybody's worried about coronavirus again. We got a big spike here. I don't know how it is where y'all are, but in Texas we got a pretty big spike, so everybody's a little bit nervous these days. But we will endeavor to persevere. So anyway, so let's dive in. I'm going to see who's up. Who's playing today? I feel bad sometimes that we have so few people when I first log in, and then it usually starts to double within about 10 minutes. Does anyone know anything about why Mike said we won't want to miss today? Oh, potentially because theoretically we heard from marketing there was going to be something big happening today, and I was reflecting that, Elbow. So we have not heard from marketing today, so it could be a complete dud. Although I will warn you that I know on Monday, when Robert Abernathy from Cyber Vista is on, we'll definitely have some very big giveaways there. And there is more, but I can't say anything because I don't have any confirmation yet, so it could be a complete bust. Patricia Grace, Andre, Jason Helms, Gino, just seeing all who's on today. Sean McLaughlin, Tolwood, of course. Axe. Act 1, Scene 1. Mike loves to cook. Yeah, I do. I cook. It's funny if the pergola folks are still on. They're the ones who really cook. You don't like my red shirt? I'm being festive for the holidays. And it's also the last button-down shirt I have that's clean. So if anybody... Scott Jernigan. Start with green beans and cream of mushroom soup. Love it. Ulysses Frere. Hey, Ulysses, you were here before. Thomas Robinson. Brendan S. Falak. See, lots of highs, so I'm not seeing any questions yet, which is okay. We got plenty to cover today on installing your home router, so I'm not in a panic. We don't have any questions up front, but we will double check here. Yeah, Jack is back, Brendan, finally. I don't know why he's been a little persnickety. Nadia Starr, love from the Netherlands. Be careful, Nadia. You have fellow folks from the Netherlands here. I'm not naming any names. Sean, I'll be taking both A+ tests in a few weeks. I wonder how sparse my room needs to be. For example, should I take books off my shelf, which is part... I would. They just don't want you to be able to look at anything written. You know. Connor's not having good luck with COVID in Kentucky. Deepak Pun. Hey, Mike. Hey, Deepak. Oh, here they come. God bless it. Armando P. is finally sneaking in. Big Matt. Hi, Mike from the UK. Hey, Big Matt. You're not the only Brit on here, I don't think, today. We'll see. And Marvin Jesus Joaquin Peralta. Oh, you passed... Well, first of all, congratulations, Marvin, for passing Core 1. Go take Core 2, man. That's the important thing at this point. SD Ronan, so did you ever finish the ultimate VirtualBox domain thingy with the 3 VMs? Yeah, we kind of ended on a little bit of a sputter. I was having trouble with getting the server on, and it ended up, for some reason, I did not set the server's IP address to static. And I did send it to static, and then it magically just went and worked. So we did. SD Ronan, you should have plenty of information to get you started there. In particular, you know, which tools we're using, where to download a copy of server, basic configuration, stuff like that. That should all be there for you. You're going to have to watch 2 videos, though. It really it spanned 2 videos, but all the information is definitely there. And then if you still have questions, either email me or put a question on in here. A number of us have it all set up, and there's a lot of the regulars have done it pretty well too. Yeah. Oh, Andre, I know you're really from Belgium, buddy. Don't worry about that. I asked what should I get with your test to take it, and you were right. There you go. Good man. Is it your dog? Yes, this is my dog. This is my dog. Here, puppy. Here, woof, woof, woof. As we say down here in southern Texas, el gato. All right, Big Matt. Hi, Mike. Here's a question for the CompTIA A+ UK version, same as the US version. Not positive, but we're pretty sure it is. They really split them up more by language than anything else. And since you folks over there do speak Americanese, it's the same exam. Theodore S. Ryzen 5 3600, 6 cores, 12 threads, and an i5 9600K cores. I have 6 cores and 6 threads. I thought they would have the same amount of threads. Could you explain threads? I'd be very thankful. Oh, Theodore, we explain threads all the time, but I'm glad to do it one more time for you. When you have a program, an executable file sits on your hard drive. When you run a program, what you're doing is you're taking that executable as well, that executable, part of that executable, and other executables are dynamic link libraries, and they get loaded into RAM. That's a running program. But we don't like to use the word program because at this point, it's now a process. And so a process is a running program. A process is some or all of a application which is now in RAM and that the CPU can access random accessly. I think I just invented a new word, accessly. Is Scott Jernigan having chest pains right now? Probably. And then inside your CPU, you have these little pipelines, okay? And a pipeline is the smallest pathway. Think of it like doing laundry. You know, you sort your laundry, you wash it, you dry it, you fold it, right? So inside your CPU are these little pipelines. And the number, now there's many pipelines per core, okay? So remember that. And so what will happen is that each individual pipeline can handle one thread. So the CPU will go into the RAM and will pull individual threads, or the threads will be called from threads that are already up and running. And those are what run through the pipeline. Now some pipelines are so good, so very, very good, that one pipeline, and I hate the word, I don't like, shouldn't be talking cores here, but I understand. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. That an individual pipeline, or we'll just say a core, even though that's inaccurate, can run 2 threads at once. And we call that hyperthreading. It's been around for a long, long time. So what you're looking at is you've got an AMD that's hyperthreading capable, and your Intel isn't. Although the one I don't have all my processors memorized like I should. Where'd your question go? You have an i5 9600K, and because you say you have 6 cores and 6 threads, to me that means it's not. So Theodore, we got a terminology issue here, buddy. I don't like to use the word threads the way you're using it. Your question doesn't ring true to me. When you have hyper-threaded capable systems, each core manifests as 2 cores. So like when you go into your performance monitor and look, you'll see instead of, even though you have 1 physical core, it'll show up as 2 cores. So, but what's bugging me here, the i5 9600K is not hyperthreading? I'd have to look that up, but Theodore, I have every confidence you're speaking to me truly. Anyway, but it boils down to this thing called hyperthreading, where you could make 1 core look, act, bark, smell, taste like 2 cores. Ryan Klein, 2:09 p.m. How am I doing already? It's 2:13. I'm only 4 minutes behind. Yes. Also, thanks for your courses. You're welcome. Because of Total Sim, I got my A+, Net+, Security Plus. Fantastic. Ryan Klein, do you have a job? People need to be working, man. Got to be working out there, dudes. Oh, God. Andre and Nadia, now you're buddies. Don't exchange phone numbers, Nadia. He's a dangerous man. He's wanted in many quadrants. Maven Feliciano. I was actually thinking, if you were worried about need to use the restroom during the exam, just use the bathroom to take the test. Love it, Maven. Absolutely love it. Not quite sure what the person would say. Deepak Pun is actually Web Dev Boot Camp. Dude, you're going to confuse me now. All right. DJJ Gamer is here. Okay, hide your silverware. Hi, you got the PDF book, Mark Wheeler. Okay, cool. Thank you, DJJ Gamer. Nice compliments. Edward Elbakai. Edward, you got to tell me how to pronounce your name right. I'm just butchering that. Mike, what do you think about pen testing? Is it needed profession nowadays? I'm studying it for Army. Okay. Pen testing is very popular, but pen testing is just one small part of your IT security group. And, vulnerability assessment and pen testing are the exact same thing. It's just what side of the fence you happen to be working on at any given moment. I personally find pen testing dull as dirt. Using all these different types of tool sets to, do with capture the flags and I don't know. It's boring. It's the same thing like people who do airport security. I don't know. It's a very important job. There's lots of demand for it. It takes a certain mindset that I do not have, and just going through. But yeah, no. The good pen testers live in airplanes, I'll tell you that. Tolowitz making jokes about the UK versus American English. I learned what suspenders were once. Sands, 212. That is a funny name to have, Sands. When are you releasing instruction videos for the Security Plus? Soon. We're trying, man. The corona has messed up everything for us. It's very difficult to produce videos right now when I'm having trouble, understandably so, for camera people and directors and script people and me. All be piled up in a small studio for 2 weeks shooting videos, because that's about how long it takes. But Sands, why are you found the instruction videos for 501 extremely helpful? The 501 exam is good until next July. Just take the 501 exam. Nobody cares what version of a test you take. No one's going to ask, did you take the 501 or 601? Nobody cares, okay? The worst possible time to take any certification exam, not just CompTIA, anybody's, is the moment a new test comes out, because nobody really knows what's on it. The people who generate training materials usually don't have any more insight on what's on the exam than you do. I read the same objectives you guys do. I've been doing it for a while, and I've got a feel for this, and there might be a person or two who might pick up a phone call and kind of give me a little guidance if I need it. But anybody's training materials, the moment a test comes out, they're awful. Man, if I had my way, I would never make training materials until maybe 6 months after something came out, because by then I could have taken the test a couple of times. I fail it a lot, darn it. And that would help me. I'm never going to give away CompTIA answers and questions. That's not going to happen. But it helps me get into the zeitgeist of where CompTIA is going on things, and maybe this topic there and that topic there I could do a little better on. I often end up shooting new videos. I will change questions in my practice banks after a test has come out. It's really, really hard for me to change books. I can't go to everybody's house with a jar of whiteout, but yeah, you always take the old test when at all possible. That's any certification. Big Matt, the CompTIA A+ exam is it's completely an online test. They have what are known as performance-based questions. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions that you'll get right towards the beginning, which are quasi-practical, I guess you could say. But no, at no time will you pick up a screwdriver during a CompTIA exam. Alan Duggan. Robert Michael. Hey, Mike, I'm going to take my A+ this Monday. Going to study over the weekend. Well, Robert Michael, I hope you've been studying before this weekend too, but good luck to you, man, in all seriousness. Brendan S. Hey, Mike, if I wanted to create a safe FTP server with Ubuntu at home, how do I secure it just for home use on my local I can't quickly name a secure FTP application for Ubuntu. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there. But keep in mind, usually with FTP, you set up certain folders they're local folders on your system, but the FTP server treats those as like the root directory and things like that. So if you log on to that computer locally, like if you just sit down to it and type on it, you can get to that folder just like you can get to any other folder. The FTP-ness doesn't affect anything. So, I mean, so for local connectivity, I wouldn't even access those folders via FTP unless you wanted to. You know, I would just probably SSH into them or something like that. But the answer is the secure FTP application that you choose will take care of that for you. Yeah, I cannot think of a, Scott, can you think of a secure FTP app? I can't. Sorry, maybe Dave Rush might know. Ulysses, Mike, any recommendations on what switch and or router should I get to get my home lab started? I'm very interested on the PF Sense units like Netgate or Projectile with Core Boot. Good Lord, dude. For a home lab, just initial home lab, honestly, just almost any SOHO router would work fine. I mean, there's nothing special here. You'd be hard-pressed to find a SOHO router anymore that doesn't have plenty of feature sets that would support you through all of the CompTIA certifications up to and including CASP. We're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to actually be showing off a router here shortly that I've only had for a couple of months now. And it's a hot dog router. I need to be plugging it in full time. But Ulysses, no, especially when you start talking about PF Sense units and stuff like that, I mean, you're almost talking more like your own home build, which is an area I don't play with it. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just, I mean, I head over and pick up a Linksys or an Asus box these days, and everything pretty much goes the way I want, and I've got the configurability I need. The Xerxes 78, I am officially A+ certified. Well done. Congratulations to the Xerxes 78. Well done, sir. Oh, Robert, I was teasing you. I figured you'd been studying, amigo. I was just goofing with you. Yeah, Scott, that's what I meant is FTP over SSH. I'm assuming that there was an app that handled the SSH tunnel and everything in one app. Brendan S., here, this is the fun. Heck, this is half the fun of being a computer nerd is like, okay, I need a secure FTP server app for Ubuntu. And you download 5 or 6 of them and you play with them and you do some research and then you can tell me which one's good because I don't know. I honestly have not set up a working FTP server in 4 years, 5. I mean, I'll set them up for demo and class stuff and things like that. I think I have a video in this series that we did that. Yeah, we definitely did. Yeah. Oh, Alice Potsy. Mike, today you can celebrate. I haven't had time to prepare my questions for you. Whoosh, okay. Where's my adult beverage when I need one? I don't have one. 300K plus in IT, fool's gold or doable? I mean, it's a few years down the road. You'd probably be more in a management position, but 300K is not unrealistic. Now, if you said 200K, I'd say, yeah, probably. Gino, find some cheap 10100 used equipment for a home lab to start. I got to tell you guys, there is a motivation on my part to, I'm getting pretty close to the point where I'm going to start foregoing physical equipment and going more and more into virtual machines. The only place that I can't easily fix that would be for managed switches. I haven't found a good virtualized managed switch where I can still go in there and configure VLANs and stuff like that. I know they exist, but I want to do something that's not Cisco. You know, I don't want to sit here and, you know, configure VLAN 10 big esoteric iOS commands. I want something where it's more graphical. Don't have one yet. But I'll tell you, Scott Jernigan turned me on to some routers. I'm going to show those to you in a minute. Well, at least they're demos. SD Ronan, how would you rate, you've asked me this question before, how would you rate Medtronic routers? Too much for a home lab network? No. Yeah, they're too much, but you know, oh my goodness, I'm going blank. Super popular line of very inexpensive routers and wireless access points and switches called, Scott Jernigan's going to type it in for me here in just a second. Scott, what's the little black 8-port routers that we have for classes? Ubiquity? Ubiquity? Is it Ubiquity? I'm pretty sure it's Ubiquity. Scott's typing. Let me see. Yes, Ubiquity. If I was going to try to get something that was spanned, that went beyond the home router and started to move more into the light enterprise router, I would definitely be looking at Ubiquity. They sell a number of different routers and wireless access point products that really move you out of the SOHO world and more into the enterprise world. Yet at the same token, they have graphical user interfaces. They also have command lines if you like that kind of pain. But they also have real bandwidth, and they don't automatically all come pre-configured as DHCP servers when running NAT like almost all home routers do. And they're dirt cheap, sub $100 for very good little pieces of equipment, and that's Ubiquity. So SD Road, the real answer is you know, I've played with those. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Microtik. I got in trouble last time we talked about this too. I haven't really played with them directly on my own. I just futzed with them a little bit, and they seem fine. Edward Elbakian, Mike, what is your main profession? To seek the Holy Grail. No, this is it. I own Total Seminars, and I yell at Dave Rush and Scott Jernigan and then sign their paychecks. I've been doing this for 25 years. Well, Total Seminars. Total Seminars was incorporated on April Fool's Day, 1995, and I've been doing all this for about a little more than 10 years before that. So what is my main profession? My main profession is to play with technology and then to tell people about it. And I tell people about them through books, practice questions, videos, and now AMAs. So that's my main profession. My main profession, Edward, is to get you certified. Because you're definitely certifiable, dude. I'm kidding. Alice got to experience Mike in full Discord mode the other day. All right, well, I will mention, there is a Discord channel that my friend Jose is the administrator of. It is not affiliated with Total Seminars. It is not endorsed by Mike Meyers. I do like to pop in from time to time, and you get the, I don't know what's the word to use, less PC version of me, a little bit more easygoing. But I'm pretty safe, I think. I think I'm safe. Scott Jernigan would send me scary texts if I wasn't. Mike Rotech, there you go, that's me, baby. FM, good evening, Mike. Good evening, FM. I'm not even gonna say anything, because if I say what language I think that is, I'll probably be wrong. 2:28 p.m. FM, that's what I'm gonna call you, FM. Good evening, Mike. I'm currently watching your great videos on LinkedIn. Get me ready for Net Plus. Good man. Do you have any advice for me? I would appreciate it. Also, who's Fred and Timmy? Fred and Timmy is, that's all I can think of when I'm trying, people spend so much time. Okay, so we need to come up with a user. User's name is, I don't know, is it Bernice or Fred or, I just say Fred and Timmy. So they're just words to say quickly so that you can keep going on in instruction. Biggest thing of advice I would say to you, not knowing you from Adam, you need practice questions. And yes, we sell practice questions. And since you brought it up, FM, I just want to let you guys know that we have a ridiculous deal this week. Are you guys ready? We have our special deals for this week is 60% off all of the A+, Net+, Total Testers, and the Tester Sim bundles. So the Sims are our performance-based questions. And the Total Seminars Total Tester. So all you have to do is go to www.totalsem.com, head over to our merchant area, pick up some practice questions. What would you say? You're doing Net Plus. Pick yourself up some Net Plus or Net Plus practice questions or practice questions and Total Tester simulations. And then just before you check out, type in 11232020 and you get it at 60% off. And I got to tell you, FM, we are already the cheapest people out there, at least of the good questions. And at 60% off, our prices truly are insane. So definitely take advantage of that. It is absolutely amazing. Oh, geez. Ian, I don't know. I've gone blank. Authpriv? Oh, that's DNS sec stuff. I'm pretty weak there. An SNMP option. Stand by. I got a question from Ian that I can't quickly answer. I want to make sure I'm not lying to you. Ian, I can't answer that question for you right now. You got me. You stumped Mike. Said here, Ian works for me. So Ian, send me something on Teams, and we can talk about that, just you and me, brother. Matt Biscup. So you guys, I saw these. Hi, Mike. Are the performance-based questions on the Network Plus where you have to enter the commands like traceroute and ping? There's a lot of different kinds of performance-based questions. Some of them are like network diagrams, and you got to do something with the network. Others could be configuration screens. There is the possibility for command line stuff. But I got to tell you, some of the easiest questions, some of the easiest performance-based questions in CompTIA, in my opinion, are the command line type questions. You're not looking for complexity. The only thing I would warn people is make sure you know what those commands look like. This is not, you need to know, when do you use ipconfig? When do you use ping? When do you use nslookup? When do you use netstat? You should know, more than anything else, why you use them. And if you understand why you use them, you won't have any problems at all. Always remember, CompTIA exams are not deep. It's a wide series of topics, but it's never deep. The number one reason that people fail CompTIA exams more than anything else, number one reason is test anxiety, because you freak out. The number two reason that people fail CompTIA exams is that you know too much. And you're going to look at some question and you're going to go, what's 2 + 2 equal? And you're going to go, well, 2 + 2 could equal 5 for extremely large values of 2. And it's not the way to look at it. If you see hoof prints, think horses, not zebras. Very few CompTIA questions are, in my opinion, challenging. Quite the reverse. The number three reason people fail CompTIA exams is lack of knowledge. So that's all the way down to third. So that's lots of answering. What are the differences between your book and the CompTIA A+ book? You mean the one that CompTIA sells versus mine? The one that I've been doing for over 20 years versus the one CompTIA's been doing for a week and a half? I don't know. Why don't you... go on Amazon or one of those things and look at the reviews for my stuff and then look at the reviews for their stuff, and you make your own decisions what the difference is. They cover the same topic. And for the record, the people who write books for CompTIA are as separated from the people who write the questions as I am. One thing I will give CompTIA is they're very careful that whoever they hire to write books for them, I don't know any of their names, which speaks volumes right there, but those people don't know any more about the exams than I do. There's no inside line because they're CompTIA Press or whatever they're calling themselves this week. Ugh. Big Matt, does that promo work in the UK as well? I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah, you absolutely gotta have practice questions, man. You won't pass any certification. Again, it's not CompTIA, it's not what Mike Meyers says. You won't pass any of your Cisco stuff. You won't pass any of your Microsoft stuff. You won't pass any of your, ISC squared stuff. You got to have practice questions for everything you do. And this is the other thing people they ask me about, because they're like, what do you think about, one of your competitors, Gene Andrews or Jason Dion or any of these guys? They're fantastic. They're not even really competitors in my view. They speak to different kinds of people. I tend to speak to what I call the more screwdriver techs. We're a pretty nerdy group in here. And in general, I appeal to the people who are more interested in understanding what computers and networks do. I do not appeal well to people who go, I just want to know what the answers are for the exam. Other people do that better than me. To me, I write about 4 things. Number 1, I'm going to write what's going to make you a good tech. Number 2, I'm going to write what's going to get you through a certification. Number 3, I write about what I call 'cause it's cool, because sometimes stuff's just interesting, 3-way versus 4-way set associative RAM caching is fascinating if you ever take the time to learn it. It's never going to be on a cert, but you know what? I like it. And then the 4th thing I have to teach you is what you don't need to know. I know. Because as nerds, there's certain things that just burn in your soul, that just burns. And there's aspects of technology that people are like, I got to know. And sometimes I got to teach people a little bit about this, and you don't need to know it. Because I understand what it is to be a nerd, man. Trust me when I tell you that. I know your pain. Oh, FM, you already passed the A+. Congratulations. FM, go get a job. Charlotte wants to sing today. Ian, yeah, sorry, Ian. Ian, you're asking great questions, and, it's what I always tell everybody. The sexiest thing one tech can say to another tech are those 3 magic words. Just those 3 words. You ready? I don't know, because I hate people who technobabble. Man, like if I were ever interview you to come work for me, I will keep hitting you with questions until I crush you. It's not that I'm trying to show off. It's because I'm interested in what you will do when I hit you with questions that you don't know the answer to. And that you say, I don't know, but I'll help you find out. Just like I told you, Ian, it's important. Well, okay, so here's this is some good questions today. Or statements. Xerxix at 233. I still don't like how the questions are on the CompTIA test. Wish Mike wrote the questions. His are better written. Well, thank you. I actually try to write questions that kind of look, bark, smell, taste, feel like the CompTIA questions, that voice. And that's one of the big reasons it's really important, in my opinion, to always have a second source of practice questions. I think my questions are great, but if you just read my questions and then you go into the exam, you're listening for the Mike Meyers voice in the questions, and it tends to be a little upsetting. So the best thing you can do is get a second source. And that's why Robert Abernathy is going to be on Monday, this upcoming Monday. Oh, here comes the scratchy nose again, kids. Robert Abernathy she's a competitor, really, and she works for Cyber Vista, and they make good questions. And I'm going to get Robin to give you guys some good deals on her questions, too, on Monday. We'll see what I can pull off. No guarantees. Group sing-along. Oh, Patricia Grace, hopefully find another job. Good luck to you, Patricia. Gotta work, man. Gotta work. Ryan Klein, 2:38 p.m. Mike, I bought Total Sims pen test course many moons ago. Isn't the course still up to date? Now that we're still on the first version. I don't remember. Scott Jernigan, Dave Rush, help me out. Is our Pen Test Plus still good? I don't remember. Either there was an update. I know it's still good. It's like, how much longer will it be good, though? That's the big question. Scott and Dave Rush are quickly typing away to get you an answer for that one. SD Ronan, why aren't you prepping a turkey? Are you asking why I aren't prepping a turkey? It's because I don't have turkey at Thanksgiving. Here in the United States, I don't know if you guys overseas know, but the American Thanksgiving is coming right around the corner, and we eat beef. We actually call it Steaksgiving. And it's going to be a very, very, very small Steaksgiving this year, unfortunately, because of Conan. COVID, yipe. Conan O'Brien is right now having a chest pain. Ian Camacho, sexy talk is not something I associate with you, Mike. Well, you better, mister. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Phil Crocker, hey, Mike, your A-plus cert passport was a bit of a game changer for me. You know, you guys went in a little secret about the passport books. They put my name on it, but it's usually Scott Jernigan who does like 99% of the work. So be sure to thank Scott Jernigan. All right. So it looks like things have slowed down a little bit. Good. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start talking about setting up a home router. Now, guys, we're going to go way deeper than anything you're going to see on A+ and Net Plus here, okay? I will try to bring that up as we're talking about stuff. You know, it's like, oh, this won't be on the A+, or this will be. But do be aware that it's good stuff, and it's going to help you anytime there's like people walking past my door. It's going to be like the Today Show. Are they going to start looking in, holding up signs, you know? Okay. All right. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this a little bit. So we did, Scott, did you put up something for the 60% discount today? I'm sure he did. You might as well throw up something for the Discord channel as well. Again, the Discord channel is not affiliated with Total Seminars or Mike Meyers. It's all Jose Braden's game there. He's the boss. All right, let's go ahead and let's start talking about home routers. Okay, so let's take a little picture. All right, so what we're going to be messing with today, this is the Asus RTX. Hang on, let me get the dang model number in my head. All right, so this is the Asus RT88 home router. This is a very new router. It's only been out a little bit. It is a home router. It's a 2x2, 2 transmit, 2 receive, wireless access point, 802.11ax home router. So it's a router and a wireless access point and a switch. You know, it's, most of the time, when you look at what we call a home router, it's really three devices in one. It's a router, it's a switch, because usually a bunch of ports in the back, and it's a wireless access point. I almost hate the word, I hate people calling them routers. I mean, that's only one part of what they do, home routers. It's what you call home multifunction networking device. Okay, we'll just call them routers. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this guy. I want to walk around the outside of this a little bit, and we can discuss this. So, it's got 2 send, 2 receive antennas, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz band. And here's my network setup right now. Okay, so I've got fiber coming into the house, and that's coming into the back of the house. And I actually have a wired house. I ran Cat 6 all the way through my house. So this runs from the back of the house, and then it comes into I've got a little utility shed, a closet, not a shed, it's a closet inside my house. And there's a switch in there, and a patch panel and a whole shebang. I should have taken a picture of that, I wasn't thinking. And then here's connected to different devices. So right here, this is going to be the computer I'm sitting at right now. There's a lot more stuff. I got tons of IoT. I've got a mesh network in there too that's connected to the switch. I've got a bunch of wireless devices. But this is enough to at least get us started and start talking about what we're going to do. So my network is currently set up. My internal network is 172.18.13 WAC 24. Well, Mike, why isn't it 192.168.0 something? Because you're going to have your home router is going to be NATed. They're all NAT. That's all there is to it. So you're going to have an internal private IP address in your LAN side of the router, as we say. And I don't like using 192.168s, mainly because bad guys will tend to use them. It's just one more thing I can make stuff more complicated on. So 172.18 is a private IP address. Remember, there's 3 classes of IP addresses for private, right? Your 10 dots, your 172.16 through 172... I forgot again. 10 dot anything. 172.16 to 172, somebody will tell me. And then the 192.168s with some arbitrary third number. I just don't like using them. I think it adds one step of complexity that I think is always a good idea. Thank you, Tolo at port 449. You're hilarious. Is it 172.31? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Nada. I forgot. All right. So that's why I've got it set up like that. All right. So what we're going to do now, though, is I'm going to throw in this home router. And I'm going to plug it in right there. Okay. So I'm going to plug it in here. And in essence, what we're doing, we have 2 routers now, right? I got the router that came from my ISP, and now I've got a second router. So watch what happens. So we're going to have to make 2 subnets. So I'm going to have one internal subnet, which I'm just going to keep at 172.18.13 because I don't want to change it. And then we're going to have another network coming in, and I'm going to set this one up as 192.168.50. Mike, I thought you didn't like 192.168 networks. Yeah, well, I forgot. It's really the best answer there is. I was stringing all this. You guys think I rehearsed this stuff? I mean, I slapped these PowerPoints together in 45 minutes, and I had to plug it into my existing network. So we are going to have a 192.168 network. So a couple of things to talk about here. Number one, Mike, if the ISP provides me a perfectly good router, why would I want to buy my own router? Well, there's 3 reasons. Number one is cost. Especially if you're running DOS's cable networks, you're paying at least $5 a month rental. And you can get a decent home router, just the router, no WAP in it, for like 60 bucks. So the thing pays for itself in a year. That's one reason. The second reason you might want to buy one is because you want feature sets that your current ISP isn't providing through the box they've given you. Like for example, I'm very interested in 802.11ax. It's still very new. We're just now really starting to see home routers rolling out for it. I have AT&T here as my internet service provider. They do not provide 802.11ax. So that's the other thing. The third reason I want to have my own home router is control. I get nervous about the types of telemetry that are being sent home by this, that, and the other. Here, let me show you a great example. Oh, hang on. There we go. Look at this. So what I did here is I typed in some arbitrary goo. I typed in this goo, and then I put .com in there. Now, AT&T, this is AT&T's little symbol here. They've intercepted this, and as a feature set, they're now redirecting me into their little bit of walled garden here. It's not super walled garden, a little bit here, and they're like, here, let us, big brother AT&T, try to direct you where we want you to go. I don't like that. So bringing in another box can be helpful in terms of having good control on what's being paid forward. Mike, is there anything wrong with the home router that I got from AT&T or whatever your ISP is? For most people, no. Honestly, they're pretty darn good. Especially with so many people who live exclusively wirelessly today. Just using the home router that came from your internet service provider is not a bad answer. There's some security issues with that, but we're going to address that here shortly. But, you know, look, I'm the cool kid on the block. I want to have the fun toys. I want the 802.11ax, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm more motivated to that. I want slightly improved bandwidth. I want quality of service. I want, you know, things that are harder to get on home routers that are issued by ISPs. But in general, are they bad? No, they're fine for everybody except us nerds, probably more than anybody else. Because, you know, we got to have the toys, right? All right. Back to this. All right, so this is the setup we're going to go for. All right? Oh, one more thing. One more thing. I've already got this router plugged in just like I showed you, okay? I can't jack with it too much or this live stream will suddenly stop. Does that make sense? So I can show you where some of this stuff is, but I can't actually make changes on the screen today because otherwise we will suddenly go to something that looks something like this. So you understand? We're going to go through the screens, but I'm not going to hit save. Does that make sense? All right, there we go. So that would be the motivation. All right? So let's go ahead and get started on this. And, oh, there's a few more screens I want to show you. Well, let's talk. So you buy a brand new SOHO router, okay? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to plug it in. Now, is that the most secure thing to do? Probably not, but the way most of these routers work today, they quickly make you do important things like changing the router's password and things like that. And by the way, folks, please don't confuse the router's password with the SSID password for your wireless access point. Those are two totally different animals, okay? One more time. The router has a password, a username and a password, and that's what gets you into the router to make configurations. Your wireless access points are what just allow you to get on the internet, okay? And since the routers have a wireless access point, there's two different places to put in passwords, and people tend to confuse those two. Don't do that. Okay, so let's dive in here. Let's just take a look. All right, so what I did is I want to show you a couple more things. So here's the back end of this guy. So you notice it's got an 8-port switch in the back, which I find very convenient. So we call this the LAN side, L-A-N. And over here, this is where we plug into the WAN side, okay? And this has got some USB. This is for like external storage. I can turn this thing into like a media server and stuff like that. I've never done it, but you can, all right? Then over here, I've got a power switch, which is actually very convenient. It's something you don't see too much on a lot of home routers. Usually all you have is an AC plug-in, and if you pull that out, that turns it off. But this actually has a legit on and off switch. This one's really, really important right here. You see that one, guys? That's your factory reset button. Let me warn you right now. Anybody who sets up a router, especially your first few routers, and you don't have to hit that a few times, you're just not messing it up hard. You're not playing hard enough. The factory reset button is important. Speaking of factory reset, probably the only really critical thing you're going to need to know about a new router is what is its default IP address on the LAN side. And it's usually going to be like 192.168.0.1, 192.168.1.1. That covers about 90% of them right there. And what is the default username and password to log on to the router? This router actually prints all of this on the back, on the router itself. But that's something you really need to know. And if it isn't printed on the router, you should probably document it someplace. Like use a piece of tape and put it on the bottom of the router, because there's nothing more frustrating than that the router starts messing up. So you do a factory reset and now you can't remember what the dang username and password is, and you can't get on the internet because you just took down your router and you're very frustrated. So it's very important that you know what the default IP address is, the factory IP address for the router, and the username and password so you can get in there anytime you got to fix stuff after a factory reset. All right. And the last button here is for WPS. Isn't it amazing that WPS even still exists today? But it does, and there's proof of it right there. And it's got a bunch of LEDs on it. This one's actually pretty cool because it has a switch. It has a WPS button, that's no big surprise, but also has a button for LEDs. You can just turn all the LEDs off, like if it's flashing a lot and you find it irritating, you can just turn them off on this guy, which is pretty handy. It also has another port in the front where you can plug in an external drive and really go crazy in terms of putting in external storage. You can literally turn your home router into like a little NAS. Pretty fun. And here's some of that default information. These are the MAC address, which may or may not be needed, but here's your default SSIDs. And then here's the PIN number for WPS. And those are the only really critical things you'll see right here. And it even has a little handy WPS Wi-Fi. I put the scanner on there and I can log anything right into it without having to type in the password or anything, if you like that feature. Okay. So if you're plugged in and you've got it plugged in correctly, all you have to do is plug it in and you should be successful. And the moment you open up your web browser, you should see something like this. So you see where it's like, you must log into this network before you access the internet. All right, so that's pretty much universal on all browsers. So we go ahead and hit that. Is everything okay here? Okay, sorry, I was just checking questions, guys. So anyway, so all SOHO routers today have some kind of automatic get you set up. So if you're still set at your factory settings, it's going to come in here and it's going to automatically redirect you to a screen like this. Back in the old days, what you would do is open a browser up and you would just type in 192.168.1.1. Now, of course, you'd have to first run ipconfig on your computer, whatever you're using to configure the router, and make sure that you're on the same network ID. So since most home systems are already preset as DHCP and most home routers are automatic DHCP servers, I would run ipconfig and make sure that I'm getting 192.168.1.101 or something like that. So you remember, I know what the default IP address is for the router, right? It's 192.168.1.1, say, and if I'm getting 192.168.1.101, I know I'm on the same network ID. Windows, the moment I plug in, Windows will put that big bar that comes up and says, oh, we're joining network 2. Is that okay? And you hit OK. And you know that you're at least connected to the router. That's good. And you can still do that with modern routers. None of that changes at all. But most, 98% of the modern routers, home routers today, will automatically, and they basically are running little Samba boxes. They pretend to be a Windows machine, and then they also do a little DNS trick, and they automatically, your browser goes into the router, and you start seeing stuff like we're seeing here. So I'm not going to go through every screen in here, but what they're trying to do is at least get you configured for the most basic critical things so that you're relatively secure. So first of all, it's like choose operating mode. This is the lower one is if you have a pre-made configuration file, upload it now. But if you choose operating mode on here, look at all the choices you get. You get a wireless router, which is what 99% of us want. You can make it a repeater if you want. You want to make it what they mean is a wireless repeater. You can make it just an access point. Turns off all the router stuff. It stops working. You can make it a media bridge, but that's probably going to require you to put some media into one of those USB ports. And then it acts like an AI mesh hub. This is an 802.11ax thing that I haven't really run into yet, and I'm going to skip it for now. All right. So I'm just going to set it up as a regular wireless router. And it says, does your internet connection require a username and password? It's asking if you need PPPoE. And some cable companies still do this. Some DSL companies still do this, but it's quite rare now. So most of us just say no. And now it's asking, is it automatic or static IP? What it's talking about is the WAN side of the router. Remember, it's a router, so you're going to have two connections. One that's connecting up to the internet, or at least up to the next router, and the other one's connecting down into your network. So that 192.168.1.1 or whatever your factory default is, that's for the LAN side, okay? One more time, the router has to have two different IP addresses. One for the LAN and then one for the WAN, okay? So people don't have too much trouble for the LAN side, but where they do get confused a lot is WAN. Where's this coming from? And the answer is, on almost all systems, it's DHCP. Oh, whoa, wait a minute, Mike. I thought DHCP is how our router gave our individual computers IP addresses. Yeah? Well, it can also give other routers upstream, can give it to lower routers through DHCP. DHCP isn't just for individual hosts and for smartphones, guys. DHCP works just fine for routers talking to routers as well. The vast majority of us use DHCP to get the WAN address of our router, which is nice because it usually means you don't have to do anything. It just works, you know. But what they're trying to do for you here is that some of us actually pay extra money to have static IP addresses. So we buy I always get in trouble making stuff up like this, 201.44.16.224 whack. Whew. Sorry. Is everybody yawning right now? Whack 30 network, right? And for the vast majority of us, buying a static IP address doesn't make any sense, unless you're running a big server. I guess the one thing I would see in homes where people would want a static IP address is they're doing game servers. That's one place where it might be interesting. Okay. I'm not sleepy, Scott. I don't know why it is. I think because I'm talking out so much, it's like hits my yawn mode or something. I had a great night's sleep. I feel great. All right. Anyway, back to this. So I'm just going to say automatic IP here. And it's like, okay, great, because that means we're already preset to DHCP on the WAN side, nothing to do. And then it's like, well, let's set up some wireless networks here. So I set up a wireless network. I called it Frodo with a really high security password. And then here's a different password. Here's where we set the router's password itself. And so I have to give it a username, some login name, and then a password. My personal trick is I just use admin for the username for everything. Just admin. It's always admin. Now, I have these huge passwords that you'll never have any hope of cracking. But the reason I do that is because I run into so many different boxes, the less I have to try to memorize or hope that a web browser stored the right answer, these password things that are stored in browsers, the less I have to worry about. And I just use admin, which is the default for a lot of them anyway. I don't need to be fancy with the username. I have to be fancy with the password. So I just always use admin, and then the passwords are very aggressive. X typed in 1, 2, 3, 4. You're hilarious. All right, so I typed in a username and password. And then here's something that I'm not going to say I've never seen this before, but it's straight up going, hey man, listen, there's a firmware upgrade. Do you want to run that? The most important time to run firmware on anything, video cards, home routers, any IoT thing there is usually in the first couple of months after something comes out, because that's usually where they find the biggest security issues. I'm generally very reticent to flash anything, but I went ahead and flashed the router because it's really new, and that version is already like 4 steps from the version I have. I will admit that I did run over to the ASUS website, and I looked up my router, and I looked up the firmware upgrades, and this particular upgrade it addressed a number of security issues. It's very convenient that that's done. People are really good about flashing the BIOS on their individual systems. If you got a smartphone, it's done for you automatically by your ISP usually. But man, do people forget to flash their individual little boxes. Routers need to be updated. Cameras need to be updated. I don't care what you got out there. If it's got a flash RAM on it, you need to consider updating it one way or another. This particular home router is nice in that it's done automatically. Back in the old days, I would have to just go over to the ASUS site, once a quarter or so, and just check it out, see what's happening. And I actually find this very convenient, that the initial configuration screen included an opportunity for me to flash the BIOS on the router. Nice, huh? I thought so. All right, I think, yeah. All right. One more time. You don't have to use these pre-configured setup things. You can, even on a new one like this, if I wanted to, the moment that thing popped up, I could have just typed in the browser window, I just could have typed in the IP address and hit enter, and it would have said, enter your username and password, and I'd be in good shape. But I like these configuration screens. I used to not like them because I'm old-fashioned, but I'm becoming to like them more and more. So anyway, we've got our machine up and running. We've done the important things. Number 1, our BIOS has been flashed on the home router. Number 2, probably I should have said this in reverse order. Number 2, I've changed the default password on the router itself. My gosh, that's important. Now keep in mind, guys, I'm not doing anything wirelessly here. Everything here is plugged in. All right, I'm using Ethernet all the way. So let's go ahead and go into our router for the first time. So all I did is I typed in the IP address for the router, which was 192.168.50.1, and I get this. So I'm going to type in, what did I? Oh, yay, hooray! I remembered the password. Okay, so now we're looking at a regular old default screen here. Guys, every home router has a different screen. Their configuration screens are all very, very different. And the analogy I like to tell people is, like my buddy Tolowit, okay? And if I was in a classroom, I'd say, Tolowit, I own a Mercedes-Benz 280 SLK. Could you run the windshield wipers in my Mercedes? And Tola would sit there and think a minute. He goes, well, I could figure it out. And I go, right. I go, are you Mercedes-Benz certified? Do you have windshield wiper certification? No. Well, then why do you sit here and say to me that you can run the windshield wipers in my Mercedes-Benz? And what he would say to me is, well, Mike, I drive cars and I've played around with windshield wipers. And then I would say, well, where is the windshield wiper on my Mercedes-Benz 280 SLK? And he goes, I don't know, but I have to poke around and figure it out. Because Tolowit understands what windshield wipers do. Tolowit understands that there's somewhere on this car, it might be a knob or it might be on the steering column, who knows, there's going to be some dials to turn and make them go slow or make them go fast or make them go intermittent. And I'll bet you if I give Tolowit enough time, he'll even figure out how to squirt water on the windshield to clean it. Because he understands it. He understands the function of what a windshield wiper should be doing. And that's the same thing with any interface in the world of IT. I can't tell you what interface is going to look like for the router that you decide to buy. I don't know. But I know if we understand the functions in there, we can poke around and figure this stuff out. Worst comes to worst, just don't hit save. Is that okay? That's important, guys. So if you want to play around with interfaces, Scott Jernigan reminded me of a wonderful website. Hey, Scott, do me a favor. So it's called ui.linksys.com. All right? I got to keep it's got to be a little off here because it allows me to see the screen. And what you're looking at here is basically just about every home router and Dumaflachi that Linksys has sold in the last 20 years. So you can go in here and just arbitrarily pick, let's pick an old one for funsies. Hang on, I'm straight up looking for like the WRT54G, which is like the oldest. All right, here, close enough. WRT54GS. So watch this when I click on this. So it has different interfaces depending on what BIOS upgrade you had. So I'm going to pick version 1. Oh, it's even got subversions like that. Now watch this. And what I'm in, guys, this is just a web page, okay? It's just a web page. But what it allows you to do is play with the interface for this ancient old router. Okay? There's port forwarding, stuff like that. Let me get out of here. Let's pick something a little more modern. Let me rephrase that. Let's pick something a lot more modern. I already know. It's a 802.11n box. Here we go. All right. So this is a much more recent one. Oh. Let me turn off my cookies tools. I've turned off, wait, why is it? Oh, I know what the problem is. Sorry guys, I'm turning off my anti-malware stuff. Bear with me a minute. See, you wanted proof that I wasn't, here, let's just see what, E8400, this will work. All right, so here's the interface for a much more modern, really? That's boring. That looks too much like the other one. Hang on. I've turned off all the cookies. Remember I told you I don't rehearse this stuff? The URL is ui.linksys.com. Make sure to turn off your anti-malware tools. In particular, I have something that wipes all my cookies every time I go to a new page. And I guess this particular site really hates that. So anyway, the bottom line is you need to go there. It's ui.linksys.com, and you'll go through all these different types of home routers and see all these different kinds of interfaces, and it's good practice. You know, how do I set up port triggering on this router? I set up port triggering on that router. Get the idea? It's just one place to do that kind of stuff to get you up and going. All right, well, fine. Let's go ahead and get back into my interface, which I definitely know is going to keep working. All right, so here's the interface that comes with the RTAX88U. There we go, it's the right name. Now, all of these things are going to have, at the very least, some kind of default entry screen that lets you know, like, what's your WAN IP address, how many clients I have, what's the LAN IP address, for some reason it's way over here, what's the name of my SSID, that kind of a thing. These are very convenient. A lot of times if you just need to know quick and fast what is the WAN IP address, most of the time going onto your router, logging in, and going to this default screen is going to be where you get that kind of information. Now, ASUS wants to sell me all kinds of other goo here, which I'm going to skip for now. And let's stay more, they call it advanced. To me, this is the more basic settings. So let's take a look at some basic settings. So usually the first place I go to is LAN, more than anything else. That's where I'm going to go. So right here is where I typed in the IP address. So you see, it was by default, it was 192.168.1.1. Let's talk about that for a minute. The moment you change the IP address on the LAN side of your router, remember, we're getting to this router through a computer. In this case, it's a desktop system, but it might just be a laptop I have plugged in. You're not going to do this wirelessly, folks. You need an Ethernet cable. The moment so let's say your setup is, the machine you're on is 192.168.1.101, and the router is 192.168.1.1. The second you change the router's LAN IP address to something different, you're going to get disconnected like that because you're not on the same network ID. That's okay. Most of these home routers, the moment you change the LAN IP address, they're going to go, okay, they'll either reboot or they'll start blasting out new DHCP information to reflect the new network ID. There are situations though, folks, where you may have to go into your configuring system and set a static IP address because you just set it to 172.19.44.1, then you're going to have to go into your system and set it to 172.19.44.22 and at least temporarily connect to it that way. That's important. Most of these SOHO routers will have really nice DHCP servers that the moment you change their LAN side, they'll reset all their DHCP information and get it right, but you can't guarantee it. You can't guarantee it. And this is one of these situations where you often find yourself hitting that reset button on the back of your machine. By the way, when we're talking about hitting the reset button, there's a whole bunch of rules for hitting the reset button. To me, the only rule that's really important when you hit a reset button on a home router is make sure all the Ethernet cables are unplugged and hold it down for 30 seconds. They used to have this thing where you held it down for 30 seconds, then you let it go, then you unplugged it and held it down for all this stuff. I don't find that at all useful anymore. If you're going to do a hard reset on a SOHO router, just make sure your Ethernet cables are unplugged. Hold the dang thing down for 30 seconds and you'll be fine. Speaking of that, another big issue that comes into play for me is that if you're going to be messing with home networking equipment, you will find yourself well served to have about a 50-foot, I can't do that in meters, what is that, 13 meter? Cable, an Ethernet cable, a big long Ethernet cable. It will save your bacon. I mean, you should always have a couple of patch cables, 385-foot patch cables, sure. but a big long one. I've got a 25-footer, a 50-footer, and a 100-footer that they just sit here in the house because sometimes I can't easily get to something, or I don't want to sit here and hold a laptop on my knee while I'm holding up a roll of paper towels while I'm trying to configure something. You know what I mean? So I find it very convenient. If I have a very long Ethernet cable, I can plug into the router or a switch or something that's in a closet, and I can sit down at a table and do my work. So something you might want to consider having around. Also, the other thing you might want to consider at this point is having that cable tester too. Boy, I'll tell you, there's nothing more frustrating. Cables don't fail very often, but when they do, it's not the first thing we look at for diagnosis. And having a known good cable is a real savior. All right. So we put that in. Also, you might want to change the name of your router to something that's a little bit more noteworthy. Now, because it actually has the model name of the router, that's nice. But if you had 2 or 3 of these around, you'd have no way to tell them apart. So this is always a good idea to, you guys are doing the metric to imperial conversions there. But giving it a good name is really going to save you quite a bit, especially because this name's going to show up on all your Windows systems. I don't have any easy way to, hang on, let's see if I'm not sure what all is going to pop up here, guys. I want to show you the network settings. I want to hide a few things because, you know, Tolowitz nosy. All right. This is the other reason giving your routers better descriptive names can be handy. Again, because this is really the only router I'm really seeing in my LAN, and because it has the model number, which I find convenient. But the place you change that so it doesn't show up like that is right here. So that's a matter of personal choice. I think it's important. While we're at it, here's a DHCP server. Now, most of the time, keep in mind, especially if you're got like 169.254 errors and you know you're well connected, it's perfectly possible that DHCP could be turned off. So you definitely want to check that out. You can see I've got to start, my IP pool starts at 192.168.50.2 and goes all the way to 254. It's actually ridiculous. I would never have that many in here. I should probably turn that down. Now you see where it says default gateway and I have that blank. Remember when I was telling you earlier how nice the DHCP servers are on home routers? They don't want you calling tech support, all right? So a lot of times you can just leave almost anything blank and it will just make assumptions. For example, it will assume that it is the default gateway for 99.99% of all homes. That router is the default gateway for your LAN, and if you leave it blank, it's happy. Other home routers will sit there and go, you've got to put a value in here. That's why I always get frustrated when people learn DHCP on home routers and then they go see like a real DHCP server, like the one that comes with Windows Server. They're sometimes intimidated because there's nothing kind about a Windows DHCP server. It assumes you know this stuff. You don't leave things blank, is what I'm trying to say. All right, now on the WAN side, you can see here it's right down. Hello? Oh, there it is. So you can see here on the WAN side, it says automatic IP, but here's where I could type in this is frustrating, guys. The pull downs don't show up on screen. Anyway, when I hit that pull down, I can set it to static, PPPoE, whatever I else might want to do. Here's where I could turn NAT off. Don't turn NAT off. Please don't turn NAT off, because that will confuse people tremendously. But now on this one, there's lots of other settings. And again, I want to avoid, there's some cool stuff here, but I'm going to avoid it. Like for example, this thing has something called dual WAN. What dual WAN means is that I can take one of my LAN ports and turn it into a WAN port. That way, if I've got 2 ISPs, remember I only have one WAN port on this home router, Well, nope, not if you turn on dual WAN. You can actually set one of your LAN ports to be a WAN port. So that way you can have your cable modem in one side and your fiber on the other, or whatever it might be. But here is port forwarding and port triggering. We've got lots of chapters that talk, lots of videos that talk about that. There's DMZ, which we've talked about in other episodes. I don't like that because I'm clicking on WAN and all of a sudden stuff like port triggering comes up. I would not have thought to look for it there. Usually you'll see something like security or something like that, depending on the brand name, but they decided to put it there. So there you go. This is where you'd be doing the Tolowit clicking around, trying to figure out where the heck something is. All right, the other one let's talk about wireless a little bit, and then we're gonna be done here. So on the wireless side, you got to remember, guys, this is 802.11ax, so you get some pretty groovy features in here. For example, one of these things is called Enable Smart Connect. Smart Connect is ASUS's brand name for an 802.11. It's 802.11u standard, which basically works with something called Agile Multiband. They usually have a setting. Oh, yeah, right here. So you have a setting called Agile Multiband. All that means is these guys work together. The wireless access points, if there's more than one, they send each other lots of information. Hosts, individual wireless hosts will talk to WAPs and send tons and tons of information that allows them to change their bandwidth, individual channel changes, channel width, all kinds of stuff. And really, you just turn it on. I think, again, you can't see the pull down. It says enable or disable. Mine's currently set to disable, and I don't know why. I'm too paranoid I'm going to lose my live stream, so I'm not going to turn on to enable, but normally that would be turned on. The 802.11ax Wi-Fi 6 mode, that's on by default. But let's see, is there any? So I'm actually going to turn this off. Oh boy. Okay. Whew. All right. So I'm going to turn off the Smart Connect. And here we can configure each band separately. And normally what I would do on my wireless networks, you're going to have the 2.4 band and you're going to have the 5 band. So what I like to do is I'll be like, FBI surveillance 2.4, FBI surveillance 5. I like to give my SSIDs funny names like that. But I'll put the 2.4 and the 5 in there so that people have a choice about which band they want to connect to. This Smart Connect thing turns that off, and maybe I'm being old-fashioned. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that. But generally, I'm just going to, I'll configure each band and make separate SSIDs. This router even has like a guest SSID. You can set up a guest SSID, which will not only, and you still got to give it a SSID name and a password and all that, but it actually creates an isolated network in that, yes, you can get to the internet, but you can't access anybody else, which is a nice feature. I can do this manually if I want to. I haven't dug through there to find that, but we can do that. There's a few other things to take a look at. I'm going to keep going here. All right, the other one that's kind of interesting is here when it says channel bandwidth. So by default, it's going to jump between 20, 40, and 80 megahertz wide bands, okay? But here's a little option that says enable 160. 802.11ax is still pretty new, and it has the ability to make channels that are 160 megahertz wide, which is amazing. That sounds great, right? The reality of the situation, though, is that you better be the only thing on 5 gigahertz to turn that on, because otherwise you'll be stomping on other people. And I'm pretty sure that's why they put the setting like that. With 802.11ax wireless, it should reduce or expand the channel bandwidth based on need. There's like 4 or 5 new 802.11 standards that are all underneath that 802. It's not really under 802.11ax. It's really under Wi-Fi 6 standard that allows you to do some of this stuff. And because 802.11ax is new, That's how ASUS decided to make that one particular setting, which is actually kind of funny. All right. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about is IPv6 because people get confused on this. The first thing about IPv6 you got to remember is you have to make sure that your ISP is providing IPv6, okay? Most everybody is. So assuming that it is, let's go through the process of getting that up and cooking. So right now it's disabled. I'm going to turn this on. And almost everybody is going to do native IPv6. The chances of you doing anything other than this, in fact, these old school tunnels, these are like VPNs, and most of these don't even work anymore. I'm surprised they're still in here. The chances of anybody doing anything else is very rare. Even static IPv6 is very rare today. So we're going to do native. Then it's got the DHCP prefix delivery. You want that enabled because that's what your ISP is going to allow you to give your internal network its IPv6 addresses. And then everything else, IPv LAN settings, you want to be stateless for your auto configuration, which means here, if we set this as stateful, I'm assuming, yeah, it wants us to type some stuff in. We're going to be stateless, and then just everything else is set to, oh yeah, enable router ad, can you guys even see that? There, enable router advertisement, that's always got to be turned on automatically. Connect to DNS server automatically, that should also be enabled. If you've got that set up the way I just showed you, which is pretty much just turn it on to native and ignore everything else, after I reset the router, which I'm not going to do because we're online, you go into IP config for your individual systems, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing IP addresses that say like 2600 or something like that, because that's where it gets it. The router that's upstream of your router will do a router advertisement down to your router. It will also provide what's called a prefix delegation, which is like the network ID for your internal network, and then your router passes all that down to your individual systems, and you're on. I mean, that's really the beauty of IPv6. When it's done right, you don't mess with anything. Well, Mike, what about DHCP? IPv6 doesn't need DHCP. IPv6 only uses DHCP if you got troubles. And man, there's Scott Dringen. There's our next class. I think it's time to do an IPv6 for these kids. Let me write that down. I'm making no promises. I almost want to come back to the screen after we do an IPv6. So those are the critical settings that you're going to be running into when you're setting up a home router. The only other thing you're going to be doing now is you're going to be documenting, folks. Write this stuff down. Tape it on the router. Your username and password to get on the router, I tape them on everything. I don't tape it on this one because he's not production yet. But I absolutely do that. You need to know what your internal network ID is. I just know that mine is 172.18.13, right? Because I set it up that way. It's in my brain. But that should also probably be documented also on the router itself. These are things that are written down because this router is going to run for 3 years, and then you're going to have trouble, and you're not going to remember any of this, and you're going to be a sad panda. And I don't want to see that. So, all right, let's see if we've got any questions. Where are you guys? There you are. Okay, first, my big question is, did you guys enjoy that? Was this useful? Jason Helms, FBI what? Yeah, I do that. All right. NSA surveillance band number 42. Scott, did I miss any questions from anybody? Mr. Meeseeks, look at me. I'm just scanning for questions, guys. All right, guys. Well, okay. I've always hoped that helpful. Pretty much, we did not go that deep past Network Plus. A couple small things, maybe. There's a lot of interesting settings on this particular router, but they're kind of unique to ASUS. Their adaptive quality of service. You don't see that on anybody else's brand. It's their own stuff they put in there. But those are the base and most important things for us to consider. The other big question everybody asks me is, Mike, which router do I buy? The two things I look for in home routers is bandwidth. What is its bandwidth, which is always advertised under technical specs, and feature set, in particular wireless. The main reason I picked this particular ASUS router is because I wanted to get my hands on 802.11ax, which is coming out now. It's going to be replacing 802.11ac Wave 2, and so that was important for me. Probably one of the best places to go in terms of getting opinions on SOHO routers is to take advantage of Tom's Hardware, which usually does a great job for what are the best home routers out there on the market today. I don't like going to Google and typing in best home routers, because you will find yourself getting redirected to a lot of places that are getting paid to say the right thing. But Tom's Hardware does a real good job. Ars Technica also usually does a pretty good job on what's the best home routers out there. And those are the two big things to think about more than anything else. So I think that pretty much covers it. You guys want to tell what? I'm not going to do quality of service. I think it's a joke. I mean, if you're running a home a home game server or something, quality of service could kick in, but that's about it. Well, you guys are all catching. Well, number one, you're catching all of my references. That's good. I don't know when we're going to do IPv6. All right. So guys, I'm going to need some questions from you here. Okay. WW 3:25 p.m. Can you comment on the guest access and why is it a good idea to utilize that feature? Okay. Guest access is for wireless. Okay. And what it does for you is you get to set up a separate guest SSID. And this guest SSID allows people to get onto the network. But like if you were at my house and you got on my wireless network, you'd have access to my home theater system. You'd have, well, it's not easy access, but you could ping my cameras. You could ping on my mesh network. You could turn my light bulbs on and off. I've got those Philips smart bulbs. And if I'm throwing a party, right, I want people to be able to walk up and use their phones and use my wireless. That's fine. But the guest SSID does, all you can do is get on the internet. It's called wireless isolation, and it basically means the only thing that wireless client, say somebody's smartphone, can do is get on the internet. They can't go anyplace else. So I find that very convenient because the other problem is, well, Mike, don't you trust your friends? Well, yeah, I mean, I trust my friends, but the problem that I run into is if something goes wrong, I don't want to go changing the password on my primary wireless networks. On the guest network, whatever, it's no big deal. I could just schlep a password on there for that evening's party. That's easy. But it would be a hassle for me to change the password for my primary SSID, because there are so many things that count on it that it would be painful. And that's the big thing. Looking for questions. So we already did, and we did do, back in June, we did an IPv6. We did. The only downside to that presentation is we were just talking about it. We didn't actually plug it in. So I will review, thank you, David, for bringing that up. I will review that video, and I'll basically pick up from wherever we left off there. Because there we were talking about link local versus global aggregable addresses, and what is a subnet, and what's the short, there's lots of people driving by, and what's the shorthand for nomenclature for IPv6. But we never really talked about plugging it in and making it work, which can be noxious, to say the least, sometimes. but it works out pretty good. All right, so it looks like things are quieting down here. So a couple of things, some housekeeping. Remember, man, I am sorry. I was waiting for marketing people to make some big announcement today, and it didn't happen. So I know I told everybody last week, you got to be here. I'm very, very sorry. I promise I'll make it up to you on Monday. I guarantee whoever shows up on Monday is going to have a shot at some amazing prizes. And I'm going to pull the stops out a little bit because Robin Abernathy is here. And remember, she's going to be here on Monday. And if anything you want to know about Security Plus, this gal knows far more than me. Ian, you can ask her that question. She'll know the answer to it. And she's just absolutely marvelous. And she's fun to listen to her talk, too. So we will definitely be doing that. Also, don't forget that the Discord channel usually kicks over about the time that this wraps up. I don't know if I'll be able to get on Discord today. We got more construction going on here. Scott says I missed some questions. Scott, yeah, I'll stall for a minute. If there's some questions, put them back up. I guess I missed questions. Sorry. Yeah, we'll just hang on for a minute. What time is it now? We have 20 more minutes. I am scrolling up, Scott. There's 500-600 posts in the chat window. Oh, in Teams? Okay, here's a good question. Fun question from Chris at 219. Oh, boy, I did miss that. When choosing RAM, which properties do you think are most important and why? Size, megahertz, CS latency, assumed typical use. To me, the most important thing is, I'm going to get the RAM that whatever the motherboard book tells me to get. So I'm going to go, number one, I'm going to get the biggest amount of RAM my wallet and the motherboard can handle. I am notorious for putting way too many bytes of RAM into a system, and I don't care because it's paid for itself once or twice, then it's worth it. That's the big thing. The other thing that I watch out for is with RAM, I'm not a big fan of generic RAM, but on the same token, I'm not going to buy the fancy, crazy stuff. I usually go with Crucial 9 times out of 10. Kingston is pretty good, although that can get on the spendy-ish side. And I am very nervous about any RAM stick that has lights on it. I know they're pretty, but I don't mind putting heat spreaders on them, the metal shields. But I don't worry about megahertz or any of that stuff because I'm going to get what the motherboard book says I need to buy. So that's not a concern. Brand name and as much quantity as the motherboard and my wallet can possibly handle. Okay. All right, well, I think we got it all covered here. All right, guys, remember that we still have the 60% off deal. I do not know if this deal is going to be next week, guys. So the marketing people are being very mysterious here, so I don't know what's going on. But it's very, very low prices. www.total7.com. Head on over to our marketing area and use the code 11232020. Scott, can you throw that down one more time for everybody? And you definitely, I would be sitting through this thing just to take advantage of that alone. These amazing prices. And so Monday is going to be Robert Abernathy. We will probably do IPv6 Wednesday of next week. We've got the wonderful person who wrote my Security Plus passport, the 601 passport, which will be out shortly. I forget the person's name. I apologize. Will also be on. And it's a lady, which is great, and we're going to be doing a lot of Security Plus because of the switchover that's going to be coming. And so I'm looking forward to you guys showing up. Again, I know I said something big was going to happen on Wednesday. I apologize. I guarantee something's going to happen on Wednesday, prize-wise, that's going to be very, very attractive. If everybody lived in the U.S., this would be easy because I know I can ship things anywhere. But we'll make it happen one way or another and let the marketing chips fall where they may. I've got stuff to give away, and I guarantee we're going to do it on Monday, and Scott Jernigan will remind me. So until that, I am Dawn Dunkerley. Yes, thank you, Scott. Dawn Dunkerley, we have not scheduled a time for her to show up, but she's very interested. I think she said we're going to talk next week, and probably one of the weeks before Christmas, we'll have her on. She's a great person, amazing writer, and I'm going to be surrounded by women who know more about Security Plus than me, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and head out, guys. I will see you Monday. Don't forget that Dave Rush will be on Friday with his Raspberry Pi Raspberry Happiness. Happy Thanksgiving to all you guys, too. And don't forget Dave on, well, wait, Dave, are you on? Oh, yes, thank you. Dave Rush is going to be doing Nmap. Cool. Nmap on the Raspberry Pi on Friday. So great Network Plus questions will be covered right there, and it'll be tons of fun. And until then, I am out of here. I will see you guys later. So this is your little Uncle Mike saying what? Good night. Good